Okay, so you want to own a private jet. Money isn't a problem for you. You can wire 8 figures without flinching, and you're done flying commercial. Done with the security lines. Done sitting next to a stranger who wants to tell you about his crypto portfolio. Fair enough. But here's the strange part almost nobody tells you on the showroom floor. The jet itself? That's the cheapest part of the whole thing. The price tag is just the appetizer. The real bill, the one that quietly drains a fortune, doesn't show up until after you own it. So let's actually do this, step by step, like you're really buying one. What it costs to buy. What they don't tell you before you can even fly it. How much it bleeds out of you every single year. And the part that breaks people's brains. The reason a lot of billionaires look at all this and decide they'd rather not own a jet at all. Stay with me. Step 1. The sticker price. How much does it cost to buy the plane? Honest answer, it depends on how far you want to fly and how many people you bring. At the bottom you've got light jets, something like a Cessna Citation or a Phenom. Brand new, a light jet runs you between $5 and $750 million on the low end, up to around $12 million for a nicer one. 4, maybe 6 passengers, a couple hours in the air before you refuel. Perfect for New York to Chicago. Useless for Tokyo. Want that new airplane smell for less? Here's the tip the wealthy already know. You buy used. A pre-owned light jet, a few years old, can drop to around $3 million, sometimes less. Why so cheap? Because a private jet loses value the second you fly it off the lot, just like a car, except the depreciation is measured in millions. Hold that thought, it matters later. Move up and you're into mid-sized jets, transcontinental in one shot. But at the very top sits the heavy iron, the ultra-long-range jets that fly you from Los Angeles to Dubai without touching the ground. The crown jewel right now is the Gulfstream G700. List price, roughly $78 million. $78 million for one airplane. And money isn't a problem for you, remember? So you write the check, you get your jet. Right? Wrong, because you can't even fly it yet. Step 2. The barriers nobody mentions before you buy. Let's say you went big, the $78 million Gulfstream. Here's the first wall you hit. You cannot just climb in and fly it. Did you actually think you'd be the one in the cockpit? A heavy jet like a Gulfstream needs 2 type-rated airline pilots. Not 1, 2. People who spent years and a small fortune getting certified on that exact model. A captain on a large private jet can earn well over $200,000 a year, and you need backups because pilots get sick, take vacations, and legally can't fly past certain hours. Then there's the cabin. Flying 8 hours to Dubai with nobody to pour the wine? You'll want a flight attendant too. So before your jet has flown a single mile, you've hired a small staff. And where does it sleep at night? Out on the open tarmac, baking in the sun, destroying that paint job? Not a chance. You need a hangar. And near a city where you actually live, that climbs fast into serious money. And we haven't even started the engines. See the pattern? Every answer creates 2 more bills. Buying the jet didn't make you an owner. It made you the boss of a tiny, very expensive airline. So how much does that little airline cost to run? Step 3. The annual bleed. This is the trap, the number almost nobody calculates before they sign. Forget the purchase price. How much does it cost just to keep this thing every year, even if you barely fly it? Start with the fixed costs, the ones that hit before the jet even leaves the ground. Crew salaries, hangar, insurance, training, your 2 pilots, your attendant. For a turbine aircraft, those alone can run from $200,000 to well over $500,000 a year before you burn a single drop of fuel. Now fly it. Fuel is the monster. A heavy jet drinks hundreds of gallons an hour. And once you add landing fees, catering, and ground handling, operating a large jet lands between $5,000 and $8,000 for every single hour in the air, per hour. Fly that Gulfstream just 300 hours a year, and your operating costs alone can blow past $2 million. Then there's maintenance, the silent killer. It isn't optional, it's the law, and some inspections cost hundreds of thousands of dollars in one shop visit. Add it all up, and a heavy jet flown a few hundred hours a year can easily cost between $2 and $4 million a year just to exist. Every year, forever. Now ask the question that should have come first. Do you fly enough to make that make any sense at all? Step 4. The thing your accountant won't let you forget. Depreciation. Remember the jet losing value the second you fly it? Here's the bill. A brand new private jet typically loses 30 to 40% of its value within the first 5 to 10 years. So that $78 million Gulfstream in a decade might be worth 20 or 30 million less than you paid. That's not a fee you write a check for. It's worse. It's wealth quietly evaporating off your balance sheet while the plane just sits there looking gorgeous. So how do the smart owners stop the bleeding? 2 ways. First, you put the jet to work, handing it to a charter management company that rents it out to other rich people when you're not flying. They take a cut, you take some cash, and your money pit at least earns a little of its keep. Second, the big one, taxes. Under current U.S. rules, 100% bonus depreciation is back for aircraft placed into service after January of 2025. In plain English, if you use that jet primarily for business, you may be able to deduct a massive chunk of the purchase price, potentially the whole thing, against your business income in the very first year. On a $78 million jet, that's a staggering tax shield. But here's the catch. You have to genuinely use it for business, more than half the time, and the IRS watches this closely. Use it mostly to fly the family to your beach house, and that beautiful deduction drops off a cliff. So the jet isn't just a toy. For the right person, it's a tax strategy with wings. For the wrong person, the most expensive mistake they'll ever make. Step 5. The plot twist. Here's the part that breaks people's brains. After everything we just walked through, the 8-figure price tag, the crew, the hangar, the millions a year, the depreciation, you'd assume every billionaire on the planet owns their own jet. Right? They don't. A huge number of the richest people in the world, household names, deliberately choose not to. And once you understand why, you'll never look at this the same way again. Because owning the jet only makes financial sense if you fly a lot. The break-even point, the magic line where owning beats every other option, sits at roughly 150 flight hours a year. Cross it consistently, and ownership starts to pay off. But fly below it, and the math turns on you. All those fixed costs, the crew sitting around, the hangar, the depreciation, they crush you, spread across too few flights. So what does a smart billionaire who only flies 60 or 80 hours a year do instead? They don't buy. They buy access. Welcome to fractional ownership and jet cards. Companies like NetJets pioneered this. Instead of buying a whole jet, you buy a fraction of one. or a block of flight hours up front, like a gift card for the sky. You get a private jet whenever you want it, a phone call away, but you never own the depreciation, never hire the crew, never pay for the hangar, never eat the maintenance bill. You just fly, and someone else owns the headache. Isn't that wild? The wealthiest people often decide the smartest move is to not own the asset at all. So let's run the numbers head to head, because this is where it clicks. Fly 50, 60, maybe 100 hours a year, and fractional ownership or a jet card almost always wins. You get the private jet experience, a predictable hourly rate, none of the millions in fixed costs rotting away in the background. But push past it. Fly 200, 300, 400 hours a year, the same routes over and over, and only then does owning the whole airplane start to make real sense. So the real question was never, can you afford a jet? Of course you can. The real question is, do you fly enough to deserve one? Because a private jet isn't a purchase, it's a utilization bet. And most people, even insanely rich people, lose that bet. They'd be richer renting the sky than owning a piece of it. So do you still want to own a private jet? Now you know what you're signing up for. The airplane is the cheapest part of the deal. The moment you buy it, you've quietly founded a tiny airline with pilots, a flight attendant, a hangar, and a maintenance schedule written into federal law. It can cost $2 to $4 million a year just to keep alive, and it's losing value while it sleeps. And the strangest secret? The smartest, richest people in the world often look at this exact math and just buy the hours and skip ownership entirely. So before you sign, ask yourself one honest question. Are you buying a tool or the most expensive trophy that will ever sit in a hangar with your name on it? Because the jet doesn't care which one you are. It keeps costing money either way. A private jet doesn't ask how rich you are. It asks how often you fly. Okay, so you want to own a fighter jet. Good news, you can legally do it. Bad news? The price tag is the easy part. See, you imagine the moment. You roll back the hangar door, sunlight hits the canopy, and there it sits, a missile with a seat. You climb in. You're the kind of person who buys a fighter jet. But here's the twist nobody warns you about. Even the countries that buy the most advanced fighter on Earth don't fully own it. They paid $80, $90, $100 million per jet, and the United States still controls the software that makes it work. So before you wire the money, let's actually do the math. Not the fantasy math, the real math. How much to buy one, how much to keep it alive, and why the most expensive machine in human history might never really belong to anyone at all. Let's start at the top of the menu, because you've got taste. You want the F-35, the Lightning II, the crown jewel, and right away you hit your first decision, because there isn't one F-35, there are three. The F-35A takes off from a normal runway, and it's the cheapest of the bunch, at roughly $82 million per jet. Why the cheapest? Because it's the simplest, and they build the most of them. Then there's the F-35B. This is the show-off. It can take off in a short distance and land straight down, like a helicopter, using a giant lift fan built by Rolls-Royce buried behind the cockpit. All that engineering magic costs you. The B runs around $109 million. And the F-35C? That's the carrier version, with bigger wings and a reinforced spine for slamming onto a moving deck, about $102 million. And here's the part most people skip right over. Those prices don't even include the engine. The Pratt & Whitney engine adds another 20 million or so. So your real out-the-door price on a brand new F-35 sits north of $100 million. For one. Feeling rich yet? And here's the catch. You can't actually buy this one. Lockheed doesn't sell to private collectors, no matter your bank account. These go to governments, full stop. But hold on to that number, north of 100 million, because everything else is about to feel like a bargain. But wait, maybe you're more reasonable than that. Maybe you don't need a $100 million stealth jet. Maybe you just want something with wings, an afterburner, and a story to tell at dinner. Good news. The civilian market for retired military jets is very, very real. Want a Czech-built L-39 Albatross, the little trainer that half the world's air forces flew? An airworthy one runs you somewhere between $200,000 and $450,000. That's less than a nice house. You want something with a Cold War edge? A MiG-21, the most produced supersonic jet in history, can be had with a static museum piece going for around $50,000 and a flyable one costing a lot more. And yes, demilitarized warbirds like old F-5s exist on the market too, sliding from a few $100,000 into the millions. So here's the honest truth. Buying a fighter jet? That's not the hard part. Almost anyone with a strong bank account can buy one. The hard part is everything that comes next. Because here's where the dream meets the paperwork. You can't just buy a fighter jet, fuel it up, and go chase the sound barrier over your neighborhood. First, the jet has to be demilitarized, and the government means it. The weapon hardpoints get welded shut. The gun ports get sealed. The bomb racks come off. Anything that could actually fire or drop something? Gone, permanently, before you're allowed near it. Then comes registration. The FAA doesn't file your fighter next to a Cessna. It goes into a special category called experimental, often tagged for exhibition, meaning you can fly it for air shows, for fun, for personal joy, but not for business. And if your jet came from overseas? Welcome to ITAR, the International Traffic in Arms Regulations. Suddenly, the State Department has opinions about your weekend hobby. Think about that for a second. You bought it, you paid for it, it's parked in your hangar, and you still need Washington's blessing to keep it legal. Starting to see the pattern? And now we arrive at the trap, the part that quietly destroys fighter jet dreams. Buying the jet is a one-time pain. Feeding it is forever. Let's talk operating cost, and let's start cheap with your little L-39. Just to fly that thing costs you somewhere between $1,000 and $1,500 every single hour. Fuel alone eats $400 to $800 an hour. An hour. Now climb back up the menu to the F-35 and hold on to your wallet. The U.S. military's own cost to fly an F-35 for 1 hour landed around $33,000 to $36,000. Per hour! Let that sink in. A single 1-hour training flight costs more than a new car. Take it up for 10 hours this month, and you've spent more than $350,000 just on flying. And that's before the hangar, before the specialized mechanics, before the spare parts that only one company on Earth is allowed to sell you. Want to guess what one F-35 costs the Air Force to keep per jet per year? Around $7.5 million every year for one airplane that mostly sits still. Here's the comparison that hurts. A brand new luxury family home costs less than what the Air Force spends keeping a single F-35 alive for 1 year. Not buying it, just keeping it. The truth nobody puts on the brochure. A fighter jet doesn't have a price. It has a meter, and the meter never stops. The day you stop paying is the day it stops flying. So who actually pays for all this? Let's zoom out because the numbers stop being personal and start being national. The F-35 isn't just expensive. It is the single most expensive weapons program in human history. Add up the cost to buy the whole fleet, plus the cost to fly and maintain every jet across its entire life, all the way out to the year 2088, and you arrive at a number that barely sounds real. $2 trillion, with a T. Just the sustainment piece, the keeping them flying piece, jumped 44% in 5 years, from $1.1 trillion to over $1.5 trillion. And here's the cruel little joke buried in the spreadsheet. As that total climbed higher and higher, the watchdogs found the jets were actually flying less and were available less often. More money, less flying. Think about that math for your own jet for a second. The most advanced fighter ever built, and the bill goes up while it sits in the hangar. Does that sound like a machine you own, or a machine that owns you? Now here's the part that should genuinely stop you cold. Let's say you're not a billionaire collector. Let's say you're an entire country. You're Germany or Belgium or Canada, and you wrote a check for billions of dollars for a fleet of brand new F-35s. You'd think that makes them yours, right? You paid, you signed, they're parked on your soil, with your flag painted on the tail. Here's the uncomfortable truth. They are never fully yours. Every F-35 runs on a software and logistics brain. First a system called Alice, now its successor called Odin. And that brain talks home. Each jet's data, where it flew, what it saw, how its sensors performed, ultimately flows back to servers in the United States. Foreign operators can't just write their own mission software and load it up. They need American approval. Pull the jet away from that system, and its stealth, its targeting, its maintenance all start to degrade. You can own the metal, the engine, the wings, the seat, but the brain that turns it into the most dangerous airplane in the sky stays leashed to a building across an ocean. So ask yourself, if you can't fly it your way, can't update it without permission, can't even keep your flight data private, did you buy a fighter jet or a very expensive subscription with a jet attached? Now, before the comments explode, let's be precise, because this is where myth and fact get blurry. Is there a literal big red button in a Pentagon basement that shuts down every Allied F-35 with one click? No. That's the movie version, and it's not how this works. There is no proven magic kill switch. But the real story is almost more unsettling because it's quieter. The control isn't a single button, it's the entire ecosystem. The spare parts, the software updates, the mission data, the maintenance approvals. All of it flows through American hands. You don't need a kill switch when you control the bloodstream. That's why countries like Germany and Canada have openly worried out loud about what they called coercive leverage. The fear that the supplier could, in a crisis, simply slow the flow and ground a fleet without ever firing a shot. Now bring it back to you, in your hangar. Even your harmless little L-39 needs parts from somewhere, mechanics who know it, fuel only certain places will sell you. The fighter jet is never just the jet. It's the whole invisible tail of dependence dragging behind it. So let's add up the fantasy. Buying one? Doable. A retired jet from a few $100,000, a new F-35 north of $100 million. Demilitarizing, registering, satisfying ITER? Doable, but slow, with Washington always in the room. Flying it? The silent assassin, $1,000 an hour at the bottom, tens of thousands at the top. And truly owning it? On the most advanced jets on Earth, that part might not be for sale at any price. Here's the real lesson inside this ridiculous dream. The fighter jet was never the asset. The asset is everything you need to keep it flying, and somebody else already owns that. You can buy the jet, you just can't buy your way out of the leash. You don't own a fighter jet. You rent the sky forever.